Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft, divide by the number of picks, apply bonuses when necessary, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Pitt next, Steelers next, Curtain next. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming off of a very disappointing playoff run in which they were dropped at home by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They enter into this season in not uncharted territory. They're still the second best team in the conference. They still got Le'Veon Bell issues with the contract. All is pretty much normal in Pittsburgh. Is no Le'Veon Bell in camp. Ben Roethlisberger wants to retire, then he doesn't want to retire now that they have a new quarterback. Now all of a sudden he wants to play for the next 10 years. Everything is all well in Pittsburgh these days. But this is a really intriguing draft here for the Steelers. Out with the old, in with the new. You kind of feel like you're seeing a little bit of the changing of the guard. Maybe the future left tackle was selected in this draft. Maybe the future number 2 wide receiver with a chance to be number 1 way down the line was selected in this draft. Maybe starting safeties moving forward or down the line were selected in this draft. You can look around at a number of different positions and say, hey, maybe they got fill in the blank for the future in this draft. Obviously, the quarterback of the future was selected in this draft. So this one felt kind of like, hey, we're building for the future. We don't want to be one of these organizations that when all, and if there was ever going to be an organization that would get old overnight, it'd be the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're one of those teams that's almost loyal to a fault. They hold on to their guys sometimes a little bit longer than they should. They're the anti-New England Patriots, which I think a lot of people admire the Steelers for being the organization that they are. But at the same time, you have to be forward thinkers, and you got to make sure that you're not left with egg on your face when the ish hits the fan. And so I think this draft kind of is that draft. They finally got rid of a guy that was in the locker room and somewhat of a cancer in Martavis Bryant. He's been shipped off to Oakland. And so now you have a guy that you bring in now in this draft that could potentially be your new number 2 wide receiver. And now you just start to put the pieces back together of a football team that underachieved last season. And you're hoping that this is the year that you put it all together and you finally get over the hump and you make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. We'll see what happens, but it all starts here with this 2018 NFL Draft, and we start in the first round, which was a surprise to many. 28th overall selection, defensive back out of Virginia Tech, Terrell Edmunds was the selection to get this Steelers draft underway. Fidarius Terrell Edmunds is the pick here for the Steelers, and I don't think anyone had him pegged as a first-round safety. As a matter of fact, they could have went in a number of different directions, and I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the big question moving forward, and that's going to be what everyone's going to be looking at when it's all said and done with this particular pick is, did you get the right one? And no one really knows exactly what the Steelers were looking for here. Were they looking for a coverage safety? Were they looking for a guy that could play down in the box? Were they looking for a guy that could do both, could rock and roll, play both strong and free, and intermingle and interchange both? There were guys that were there at the time of this selection that could have fit any specific role you were looking for. You're looking for a free safety, a pure free safety. Jesse Bates or Justin Reed were sitting right there. A lot of people, including myself, had the Steelers pegged to take a guy like Justin Reed. You look at Ronnie Harrison, if you're looking for a pure, strong safety, but a guy that can do a little bit of both, but really more so in the box physical presence, Rodney Harrison would have been your guy in the first round. Or if you were looking for a guy that could give you a little bit of both, maybe Rashawn Golden out of Tennessee would have been the better selection. Who knows? We'll see. But Terrell Edmunds, really fascinating case here. Let's talk about what he brings to the table. 6'1", 217 pounds out of Va Tech. NFL bloodlines, obviously, with his dad playing in the league as a tight end for a number of years, and of course his brother being selected in the same draft as him in the same round. Go figure. Both first-round selections. No one actually saw that coming. We knew that Tremaine was going to be a first-round pick. I don't think many of us projected Terrell to be one as well. But nonetheless, 4'4", 40, 41.5-inch vert, 11'1" broad. The guy's athleticism is stupid and off the charts. Played in 37 games, started 31 of them in his career. Shoulder injury cost him the final 3 games of his collegiate career. He pretty much knew he was going to make the leap from collegiate player to NFL hopeful. And so no need in pretty much delaying the inevitable. I'm going to need surgery on my shoulder. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way now and let me prepare for the upcoming transition to the league. So that's what he decided to do. So he missed the final 3 games of his collegiate career to go ahead and have that shoulder surgery. And he needed it all year long, and he had put it off until he couldn't put it off any longer. So big kudos to him for putting up with the pain that he must have been having throughout the course of the season to help his team win ball games. Nonetheless, career stats: 6 INTs, 1 block kick, 6.5 tackles for loss, 14 PBUs, and a sack and a half under his belt. Measurables: 6'1", 217. It's a good size for an NFL safety. And this is a guy that I think the Steelers look at as someone that can cover. And speaking of which, speed is ridiculous. I talked about his 4.47, which is insane. But it's what you see from today's safety. These guys are running faster than ever. And you got to see it in the Duke game where there was a backside post, and he was on the opposite side of the field in zone coverage. He sees the backside post and just takes off running. Ball hangs up in the air, maybe a little bit longer than it needed to. He just runs under the football, runs past the corner, runs past the receiver, and tracks the football and picks it off. And that, to me, was a great show of his speed and his acceleration and his ability to go get the football. The fact that the Virginia Tech defensive coordinator, Bud Foster, was comfortable enough to match Terrell Edmunds up one-on-one with Clemson wide receiver Deion Kane, who we all know can fly, says a lot about his speed and their mindset in terms of Terrell Edmunds and what they feel like he is capable of doing. So that just goes to show you that this guy can run, and not only do they know he could run, they felt like he could cover as well. Athleticism is really good athlete. Obviously, I told you 41.5-inch vert, 11'1" broad. So this guy is definitely a good athlete. Doesn't locate and contest as well as I would like him to, though. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves with him, is that he's often in position. I mean, you watch this guy, there aren't many times where he's in man-to-man coverage or even zone, and he's not in great position to make a play on the football. He simply doesn't look. And I don't know if he doesn't trust himself to look back, if he wasn't taught to look back, or if he's just not comfortable looking back. Whatever the case may be, he just refuses to look back for the ball. He got a PI versus Clemson where he was in great position, could have made a play on the football, but he just didn't look back. Receiver tried to come back to the ball. He never looked back. He might have even been able to pick it off had he turned and located, but instead he runs into the receiver, picks up a senseless PI. He gives up a touchdown in the very first game of the season versus West Virginia, where he's right, literally, if he turns around, I don't know how he doesn't pick this pass off. He's right there, but he doesn't look. The receiver's able to catch it, and not only is the receiver able to catch it, he then is able to break the tackle of Terrell Edmunds and take off for a touchdown. So it was a double whammy. He made matters worse by not turning and looking and locating the football, but then missing the tackle that would have prevented a touchdown from being scored on that particular play. So he's got to look back for the football. If he does that, this guy could be a dangerous weapon in this Steelers secondary because he's got ball skills. He can make plays on the football, but you got to find it first before you can make a play on the football. tackling and willingness to tackle, he has a presence around the line of scrimmage. He's a guy that they played that rover position with at Vatech at times, where he'd just be hovering around the line of scrimmage. They'd use him as a blitzer. They'd use him as a guy to run blitz and come in and try to create havoc up front around the line of scrimmage. He was a guy that would be patient, stay in his gap, make tackles, clean up the mess that may have been created by the front seven. So he was a guy that they felt comfortable being an eraser back in the secondary, but also a guy that would come up and be aggressive around the line of scrimmage. Man coverage ability, I talked about this guy and him just needing to look. There were a couple of nice PBUs versus West Virginia early in that ball game on some crossing routes where he was just in the hip pocket of the receiver, located the football, and knocked it away. And that's all I'm asking him to do, is just be more aware of what's going on, know when the football is coming, and look back for it and try to make a play on it instead of just trying to face guard or not even looking back for the football and just trying to play the ball once it gets to the receiver. He has the capability to be so much more than just a guy that's there. He has the capability and the potential to be a guy that can be a playmaker, and that's why he just needs to start looking back for the football. Blitzing capabilities, I think he's a very capable blitzer, a guy that times it up solidly. Not as well as I think he could, but he times it up well enough that he can get a jump, and with that kind of speed and quickness, he's a guy that can present problems once getting in the backfield and in a quarterback's face. A really good field coverage and range. He just needs to play with a little bit more intuitiveness. He needs to be a little bit more out in front of what's going on. I think sometimes he doesn't trust what he sees. Quarterback staring down a particular side of the field. Hey, look, man, he could be looking you off, but if he's taking you straight to the football, why deny yourself the opportunity, the privilege to pick a guy off if he's telegraphing where he's trying to go with the football? If his eyes are saying, hey, I'm going over here to my number one receiver on this 9-ball, how about you just go over there just in case? If he's looking you off and he wants to go to the backside post, so be it. But you'd much rather say, hey, he was staring it down. I read his eyes. He took me to the football, and you can make a play on the ball. I think he just needs to play with a little bit more of that intuition, that intuitiveness that will allow him to make plays instead of being there just a tad bit late, because his athleticism is ridiculous. He should be able to get to any point on the football field and make plays. A really good versatility, as I told you, a guy that can come up in the box, a guy that can drop over the slot, a guy that can play single high free safety, a guy that can even go out wide and play. I told you, this man was matched up one-on-one versus Deion Kane, Clemson's #1 wide receiver. So he can even give you that in a pinch if need be, and he's got the fluidity to be able to do that. But there's some versatility here, definitely, with Terrell Edmunds. Toughness and durability. Here's a guy that I told you played through a shoulder injury that he ultimately had to have surgery on. So the guy is definitely tough as well. So there's a lot to like here. I still don't know if you got the right guy or not. Well, time will tell, okay? If you were looking for a pure free safety, Jesse Bates or Justin Reed probably would have been better options. If you were looking for more of a strong safety, Ronnie Harrison was the guy. If you're looking for the blend of both, then maybe you got the right guy, because I don't think Rashawn Golden is better than Terrell Edmunds. So, and I think he would be the next closest thing to a blending of both strong and free, a guy that can rock back and forth and play a little bit of both and do it at a high level. But Terrell Edmunds, to me, is better than Rashawn Golden. So we'll see. You got some guys back there. I don't know how you feel necessarily about Sean Davis. I don't know how you feel about Morgan Burnett, who you brought on board. I can tell you this much. Morgan Burnett is going to be on the football field. He's a very smart and reliable football player. But I don't know how you feel about Sean Davis. And so we're going to see what the role for Terrell Edmunds is, because you don't draft a guy in the first round if you don't plan on playing him right away. So the thought process is this guy's going to probably be your starting free safety, but we will see what happens in the first round. 28th overall selection, defensive back out of Virginia Tech, Terrell Edmunds, for me, is For those of you scoring at home, Terrell Edmunds was a triple to kick off this Steelers draft as we go to the second round, 60th overall selection, wide receiver out of Oak State. James Washington was the pick. So James Washington was the first of two straight Oklahoma State picks, two huge straight Oklahoma State picks. And I'm not going to break down James Washington here, as I've already done that on the Draft Prospects 101 series on the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of James Washington and all the other prospects I was able to get to prior to the draft, check out the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. Go to the playlist section and hit the 2018 Draft Prospects 101 series. That being said, this guy is a big-time playmaker, and he was so at Oak State. And at one point, he was viewed as the best receiver in all of college football. Between the beginning of the college football season and the end of the season, other guys emerged, and he just became one of those afterthought kind of players because of his size and his build. He looks more like a running back, and then him wearing the number 28 doesn't help because it makes him look even more so like a running back. But when you put the tape on, this guy is as reliable as it gets as a receiver in this particular draft class. Doesn't drop the football very often. Strong hands, runs solid routes, goes and attacks the football, can beat corners who fall asleep and are flat-footed. He will run by guys. There isn't one thing that he doesn't do well. He doesn't do anything great, but he doesn't do anything bad. The ceiling isn't tremendously high for James Washington, but it's not low. The floor isn't low either. He's a guy that you pretty much know what you're going to get, and this is the quintessential number 2 wide receiver in this league, and he's going to complement your number 1 wide receiver in A.B. so beautifully. The yin and the yang of what this guy brings to the table and what A.B. brings to the table. It's going to be fun to watch these guys along with Juju Smith-Schuster, who I might probably be underestimating. He's probably more so your number 2, and James Washington will be your number 3. It'll be anxious to see how these targets are divvied up. You know, A.B. is going to get his chunk. We saw a lot of good things from Juju Smith-Schuster last year. You throw James Washington in the mix, and all of a sudden now you've got one of the best trios in the league. And then you added some guys in the offseason. I think Bucky Hodges out of Virginia Tech, a guy that really never caught on last year, is a guy that could really be a difference maker as a tight end. Hell, he's more of a receiver, but call him what you want. That's another guy you could throw into the mix. And Quandre Henderson, another guy that you got as a free agent, as an undrafted rookie. It's another guy that I think could come on to this roster. You've got a void on your football team for that smallest, speedy type receiver. Quandre Henderson could be that guy. We'll see, but I really like what James Washington brings to the table, and I think he's going to be a great asset to this Steelers football team. In the second round, 60th overall selection, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. James Washington, for me, is for those of you keeping score at home, James Washington was a triple as we move on to the next pick. Also an Oklahoma State alum, 3rd round, 76th overall, quarterback out of Oak State. Mason Rudolph was the selection. So this was a big one. This was a big pick. This one sent ripples through the draft. This prompted Ben Roethlisberger to come out. Oh, I want to play another 4 or 5 years. Yeah, that was what this pick meant. It was that big of a pick because, look, I told you when you drafted Joshua Dobbs, I'm like, he's not the answer. Joshua Dobbs is not the answer. He's not the future of the quarterback position. I told you when you drafted the Oklahoma quarterback, Landry Jones, he's not the answer. This guy is the answer. And so Ben felt threatened. Ben didn't say anything when the Steelers drafted Joshua Dobbs because he knew Joshua Dobbs wasn't a threat. Okay, when they drafted Landry Jones, Ben didn't say anything because he knew Landry Jones wasn't a threat. This guy here is a threat, and Ben felt that. And so he felt the need to speak up. Why did he feel the need to speak up? Because Mason Rudolph is a starting caliber NFL quarterback that you happen to get in the 3rd round. And to be honest with you, some teams dropped the ball because he should have been taken in the 2nd round somewhere. He was good enough to be taken there. And I've had a love-and-hate relationship with Mason Rudolph. When this guy first really burst onto the scene in 2015, I thought that this guy was going to be the next big thing at the quarterback position in college football. 2016, it wasn't that he was terrible. It just wasn't, he wasn't as good as he was in 2015 to me. Dealt with some injuries, wasn't the same guy. 2017, I thought he returned back to form, but he never really regained the luster and the shine that he had when he came fresh onto the scene in 2014 and upset Oklahoma in the Bedlam game, and in 2015 when he was playing so well and everyone looked at him and projected him as one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. It just, other guys overtook him, and he never really regained the notoriety and the publicity that he had early on in his career, but doesn't take away from what this guy is. You got to protect him. He's not mobile like some of these other guys that came out in the draft, but you protect this guy, he will carve you up. 4'9", 40 for the 6'5", 235-pound product, so similar size and stature to that of Ben Roethlisberger. 42 consecutive career starts in his career. Speaking of career stats, let's give you those right now. 915 completions in 1,447 attempts for a 63% completion percentage for 13,618 yards, 92 touchdowns, 26 INTs. So you're basically talking about a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is beautiful. In 2017, his numbers are as follows: 318 completions over 489 attempts for a 65% clip for 4,904 yards, 37 touchdowns, 9 INTs, pretty much across the board, all career highs for him. So playing some of his best football in his final year on the campus at Stillwater. Never had a season of double-digit INTs, so that means he takes care of the football. Also, 16 rush touchdowns over the last two seasons, including 10 in 2017. So although he's not the greatest athlete, he's not afraid to tuck it and run on your ass, and when need be, get into the end zone. And so lot to like here with Mason Rudolph. You go to his measurables, obviously they're off the charts at 6'5", 235. He's got really good arm talent, can drive the football to all portions of the field. Athleticism, he's functionally mobile, okay? No, this guy isn't going to light you on fire. And in fact, if you get pressure on him in the pocket and he doesn't really see a backdoor exit, he's not going to create one. He's going to pretty much get sacked. But the guy is functionally mobile. He can get you 4 yards on 3rd and 3. He can get you a 5-yard touchdown scramble on 3rd and goal from the 5-yard line. So don't sleep on him. He can move. He doesn't have 2 left feet. Throwing mechanics are just fine. Footwork, he's got very quick feet. Not a guy that was ever under the center while at Oklahoma. So you won't see that on tape. So that's obviously something he's going to have to work on. And he'll have plenty of time to do that because Ben Roethlisberger is the guy in Pittsburgh. But his feet are very quick. He resets them extremely quick, which allows him to get the football out of his hands extremely quick. Pocket awareness, very sound pocket awareness, knows what's going on around him. Not a guy that's very loose with the football, knows when he's about to have to take a sack or needs to get rid of the football. Sometimes pocket mobility, not the most mobile quarterback in the pocket. Like I said, he's not Baker Mayfield, who's going to create inside the pocket and outside, or step up, move up in the pocket, shuffle to the left, shuffle to the right just to create a little bit more space. That's not necessarily what this guy is doing. He's not Sam Darnold, who can get out of the pocket and create more time and deliver it on the move. He's a guy that when you protect him, he's got time. He can be cerebral with the football. Accuracy. Extremely accurate with the clean pocket, which is pretty much what I've been echoing. Similar to Josh Rosen, you protect this guy, he can be a dynamic thrower of the football. This is where he separates himself from many of the quarterbacks in this draft. I don't think he gets enough credit for this. Deep ball accuracy, to me, he throws the best deep ball of any quarterback in this draft class. His deep ball has so much touch. It's got the right trajectory, allows players to run under the football. Rarely do you see a guy have to wait on a Mason Rudolph offering 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. And some of these throws are off the back foot. He does a really good job of giving his receivers a chance to make plays down the field. And boy, does he drop it right in the breadbasket. I tell you what, his deep ball is gorgeous to watch. Moxie and poise, will stare down the gun barrel to deliver the football. He will take a shot. I watched this guy on countless throws take a shot in the pocket, right in the chops, to deliver the football and a strike right over the middle of the football field. Leadership intangibles, he's got that. I mean, I watched him carve up Pitt in the game was like 35-7 after the first quarter. I mean, he went off on Pitt's defense. I mean, it wasn't even fair what they were doing to Pitt. That game was over before it even got started. And you watch him against Oklahoma, he was destroying that Oklahoma defense. Granted, I understand it's the Big 12. Nobody plays defense. I get it. But he still was out there that, look, we didn't penalize Baker Mayfield for shredding up the Big 12, so I'm not going to penalize Mason Rudolph for doing the same. Durability, like I said, 42 consecutive starts. Once this guy got the keys to that Oklahoma State car, he never relinquished them. Processing speed, he gets the football out of his hands quickly. And unlike a lot of these quarterbacks that play in these wide open offenses, especially in the Big 12, where a lot of quick throws, a lot of these dink and dunkers, a lot of these hitches and bubbles and tunnels, he was pushing the football down the field. Similar to Baker Mayfield, he was pushing the football down the field. A lot of down the field chunk plays and big time throws. So you got to see it. There's a reason why this guy wasn't a 72% completion percentage guy, because he was actually throwing the football down the field. So that was actually fun to watch. Accuracy on the move, I don't like this guy on the move as a thrower. Wasn't asked to do it very much at Oklahoma State. And when he did have to move, I think his accuracy decreased dramatically. So again, a guy you want to keep in the pocket and upright and clean in order for him to do his business at the highest level. Decision making can be, this is my biggest knock on him. Not from a, oh my God, that was a poor decision. He predetermines decisions. There are times where pre-snap, he doesn't even read the field. He just says, all right, this is the matchup. This is what I want. This is where I'm going with the football. Doesn't read the field. Throws a pick in the end zone versus Oklahoma, where he doesn't even identify that there's a lurking defender underneath the post route that he's trying to throw in the back of the end zone. He just identified pre-snap. This is where I'm going with the football, and threw the football to a spot. It would have been a completion if not for the underneath defender that picked it off, but he never looked and identified that guy. He predetermined where he was going with the football. On 2 occasions, watching him on tape in interception situations, I saw him predetermine where he was going with the football. There was another play in the end zone on a knockaway where he throws it to Marcel Aitman, who is covered. Meanwhile, the tight end leaks out into the flats. I mean, you can't be any more wide open on a field while the play is actually going on. I mean, it almost looked like he walked off of the sideline and no one knew he was on the field because he was that wide open, and he never once took a look over there. He had already predetermined, I'm going to Marcel Aitman here, and instead, he should have saw the tight end wide open. He could have run up and underhand tossed it to him. He was so wide open, but he didn't even look because he had already predetermined where he wanted to go. That's, to me, the biggest downside to Mason Rudolph right now, is sometimes he will predetermine where he wants to go with the football. But look, man, besides the lack of mobility, this guy has it. And for you to get him in the 3rd round, you should feel fortunate. You protect this guy, he has a chance to be a difference maker in this league for years to come. I feel like this is a great opportunity for him to sit, learn behind one of the best the league's ever seen, and in 2 years from now, be ready to take that throne, similar to Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre. And we don't see quarterbacks do this very often anymore. Guys sit and wait for their turn. Jimmy Garoppolo did it in New England, but he didn't take over that car in New England. He had to go elsewhere to get his whip and the keys. Mason Rudolph is going to get an opportunity in Pittsburgh, whether they got to push Ben out of the door or Ben hangs it up himself. Mason Rudolph is going to be the guy next in line in Pittsburgh. We'll see if he is, in fact, a franchise quarterback or not. But all the intangibles, all of the tools necessary are here in the 3rd round, 76th overall selection, quarterback out of Oklahoma State. He's joining his buddy, his go-to man in college, in James Washington, with this Pittsburgh Steelers football team. And just like his buddy James Washington, Mason Rudolph is For those of you keeping score at home, Mason Rudolph was a triple as we continue here in the third round. 92nd overall selection, Western Michigan offensive tackle Chuck Wuma Okafor is the selection. So Chuck Wuma Okafor is one of the more intriguing tackle prospects in this draft. Here's a guy that came over from Nigeria, Botswana to be exact, in 2010. Hadn't played a lick of football, probably didn't even know what football was when his family immigrated to the U.S. And so you're talking about a guy literally with 8 years of experience playing the game of football. So he's still extremely raw. When you watch him, you can still see a guy that is still learning some of the nuances of the game. So that's got to be somewhat exciting if you're the Steelers, that this guy hasn't met his full potential yet. There's so much more to tap into with him, and you can't teach what this guy has in terms of size at 6'6", 320 with 34-inch arms. Guys don't grow on trees with that kind of length and size. Pause. So you are definitely excited to work with a guy here with that kind of measurables. 5'3", 140, 19 reps of 2 1/4. You'd like to see him get stronger, and he will, as he'll have an opportunity to get into the Steelers weight and conditioning program, and they'll get him stronger. That's something that he'll need to do. You look at him, 50 games is the amount that he played in. He started in 38 of them, 26 at left tackle, the other 12 at right tackle. So this is a guy with experience on both sides of the line. Right now, I think he is better suited for the right side, but if you ask me, he has the potential in the future to maybe be your left tackle down the road. And so we'll see what the Steelers decide to do with him. Right now, he's going to serve as a swing tackle behind Marcus Gilbert and Alejandro Villanueva. But if any of those guys were to go down, you feel comfortable with having a guy that can play both positions. So we'll see what the Steelers do with him, and ultimately what will be his landing spot when he does enter the starting lineup at some point in the future. Measurables off the charts at 6'6", 320 with 34-inch arms. He's a solid athlete. Again, nothing to write home about. The 5'3" is legit. You see him on the field. He is a guy that labors to move at times, so the athleticism doesn't stick out at you. Technique doesn't use his length as well as he should. This is by far and away my biggest knock on Chuck Wuma Okafor, and you can just call him Chucks. Everyone else calls him Chucks. In any event, my biggest knock on him is that, and again, I talk about tackles, and my analogy is always to one of a boxer, and I talk about the reach advantage in boxing. What good is a reach advantage? What good is it that you have a 3-inch reach advantage over your opponent if you don't use the jab? Then you have all of a sudden rendered your advantage meaningless or useless. You are surrendering your biggest attribute as a fighter if you do not use the jab, and then you have a reach advantage to keep a guy on the outside where your punches will do more damage. Same thing can be said for a tackle. What good is it to have 34-inch arms if you're allowing guys into your body and the first contact that you make is with your face mask? That's a problem because you're not getting an extension on your arms. You're not keeping guys at bay, and you're allowing guys to control the action. And that's what you see with him from time to time. When he's able to extend his arms and get a punch out there and get a feel for where the defensive lineman or the rusher is, he keeps them at bay, keeps them in front of him, and he wins the rep. When he allows guys to get into his body like T.J. Watt did in 2016 in the bowl game, where he pretty much ragdolled him, grabbed him, got up in his grill, shook him, and discarded him and got to the quarterback for a sack. Or you watched him against Michigan State get beat on a play where he allows a guy to shock an arm, throw him out of the way, and get to the court. He's got to use his length, and sometimes he falls asleep behind the wheel, allows guys to get into his body too close. Too many times his hands are back here and guys are getting in his face and he's not extending his arms. He's got to use his length to his advantage. He doesn't do it enough for me right now. Anchor is solid. For all of that I just said and guys getting into his body, you rarely see this guy jacked up and put on skates. But at the next level, where the competition is a lot stiffer and guys are much stronger, you can see a guy pick his ass up and deposit him right into Ben Roethlisberger if he's not careful. He's got to start using his length better. Solid balance, redirect, and toughness. Pass blocking ability, has problems with quick hands and speed to the outside. I saw a number of guys beat him a la TJ Watt, where he was able to just shake him, the nice grab and snatch technique, and then use quick hands to defeat him and get around the edge. And Chukwuma Okorafor is a guy that doesn't recover well, which is my next thing to talk about here, is not quick enough after being beat to the outside to recover. Don't think he recovers as fast as you would like him to. And so when a guy beats him off the edge, generally he's beaten. So he's got to use his length to avoid that at all costs. Awareness, I think he handles twists and stunts effortlessly. I think he handles that like a 10-year vet. So that's one of those departments where he does not struggle. It was like pulling teeth watching this guy pull, get out on a bubble screen or a tunnel screen. It was like watching paint dry. That's not something I think he is adept at. Again, the athleticism really not there, so that's not something you're looking forward to doing with him. But good availability. The best ability is availability at the next level, and he was a guy that pretty much was available throughout the duration of his career at Western Michigan. So really solid prospect, a guy that right now is going to be a backup swing tackle for you, but in the future, I think this guy's got the potential to be a starting left tackle if you can work out some of his kinks. Worst case scenario, this guy is a quality right tackle for you for years to come. That's the hope. We'll see what happens, but in the third round, 92nd overall selection, offensive tackle out of Western Michigan, Chukwuma Okorafor is. For those of you scoring at home, Okorafor was a double as we move on to the 5th round, 148th overall selection. Defensive back out of Penn State, Marcus Allen is the selection. So after seeing this pick, I kind of feel like I know what the Steelers envision Terrell Edmunds as. I think they look at him as a pure free safety with the ability to drop over the slot and do some creative things with him. Whereas Marcus Allen, to me, is more of a hammer. He's more of a strong safety, a guy you want in the box, a guy you want around the line of scrimmage. The further away from the line of scrimmage he is, the more he is a fish out of water and can be exposed. You put this guy around the line of scrimmage, and I think that's where he does his best work. 6'2", 215, 4.55, 40. Put a lot of questions to bed. A lot of people didn't think this guy could run, so that's a good time for him. 15 reps of 2 1/4, 37-inch vert, 10.5 broad. So again, another athletically gifted safety that you draft here. And the thing that you get to see with him, you see that 4.55 when he gets open space to run downhill to make a tackle. He's a blur at times. He can make plays. The best example I have of that is the Pitt game in which he gets a safety. The tackle is out there to block him. It's a swing screen, and the tackle can't get to Marcus Allen fast enough because he diagnoses the play right off the bat. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to it. Nonetheless, played in 52 of 53 games and started 45 of them. So here's a guy that was constantly on the field from the minute he hit the Penn State campus in Happy Valley. This guy was a contributor right off the bat. 1 career INT, 5 forced fumbles, 17 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 11 PBUs, and a blocked kick. So this guy impacts the game in a multitude of ways. But as you can see, the only interception there lets you know that he's more of a guy you want around the line of scrimmage. Really good measurables at 6'2", 215. Like I said, the speed was an added plus that a lot of people weren't banking on, and that he put to bed at his pro day. Athleticism, shows quality athleticism on tape, proved he had plus athleticism at his pro day. So that was good that he was able to turn in that 4.55. Acceleration, like I said, you get to see it around the line of scrimmage when he gets space and he identifies and diagnoses something fast. He's able to open up and run, and that's when you get to see the quickness, the speed, the acceleration all on display. Solid change of direction, anticipation and awareness. That's the play that I was referencing against Pitt. He identifies and is very aware of what's going on, sees the swing screen, gets out there, beats the tackle to the spot, and is able to tackle the running back for a safety in the end zone. Beautifully done play. And when I say he lights him up, I mean he runs through him, drives him back, wraps up, great form. And he's a guy that will come, try to lay you down with the shoulder, but he also will get you down with good form at times as well. Ball skills, like I said, only one career INT, so take it for what it's worth. Tackling and willingness to tackle, this is what he does. This is his calling card. This is what is going to allow this guy to excel at the next level, is his ability to tackle, be a physical presence on the football field, be a downhill football player that can play on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage or clean up any messes that may arise in the front seven. He's a guy that will quickly come up and put anything to rest if need be. Man-to-man coverage or zone, I think he can play both, but doesn't excel at either, is what I put in my notes. He's not great at either one of them. Solid enough that he doesn't necessarily hurt you, like I said, as an underneath zone defender, as a man-to-man guy close to the line of scrimmage. He's not going to hurt you in either of those situations. It's when you start asking this guy to run with someone 25, 30 yards down the field, when you ask this guy to drop, 40 yards or 25 yards away from the line of scrimmage, that's when you start getting into trouble with Marcus Allen. The closer he is to the line of scrimmage, the better off he is if you're asking him to play any type of coverage, whether it be man or zone. Blitzing capabilities, really like this guy as a blitzer. Think there is a future at the next level as a blitzer off the edge. Field coverage and range, as I said before, and I'll reiterate it here, more of a box safety, more of a guy you want around the line of scrimmage. That's the best capacity for which he should be used. In versatility, again, more of a, underneath defender, more of one of those guys that you kind of want lurking, one of those lurking defenders underneath. So that's pretty much, I think, what he should be asked to do. But the durability, as I mentioned, played in 52 of 53 possible games while at Penn State. So, again, very, very durable safety here in Marcus Allen, especially for a guy that plays the game as physically as he does. Surprising that he really hasn't missed any games. So that is a huge plus. Really like what this guy brings to the table, and I like the transformation of what the Steelers are doing. You have good depth at the safety position now with Morgan Burnett coming on board with Sean Davis, now adding two more safeties that to me are polar opposites. Now you have a little bit of diversity. Now you have depth. Now I'm anxious to see how you use these guys in the upcoming season because this guy's talented and he can help you, not only on special teams initially, but also on the field, on the defensive side of the football. In the 5th round, 148th overall selection, Penn State defensive back Marcus Allen, for me, is Marcus Allen is a double for those of you keeping tabs at home as we continue in the 5th round, 165th overall selection. NC State athlete Jalen Samuels is the selection. Jalen Samuels is one of my favorite players in this entire draft. He's probably one of the most underrated, undervalued players in this draft. I don't think he was fully appreciated for what this guy did at NC State, what he was for that football team, and what he's capable of doing potentially at the next level. A lot of people look at him and the first thing they want to say is, oh, he's a positionless player. I beg to differ. There's a problem when you're a positionless player on defense. when you don't have a natural position on offense, it's not a big deal because it's the job of the offensive coordinator to find ways to get that guy involved. Don't talk to me about a guy not having a position on offense. Look, there's a problem where if a guy comes into the league as a 257-pound defensive end, and he's not big enough to set the edge in the run game as a base 4-3 defensive end, but he's not fast enough or big enough or athletic enough to be an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, he's a positionless player. What do you do with this guy? He doesn't hold any value. If a guy comes into the league and he's 269 pounds and he's not good enough and strong enough and big enough to hold the point as a 5 technique, but he's not big enough or small enough to play defensive end, then you have a problem. Not big enough to play inside as a defensive tackle, as a 3-tech or a 1, but he's not big enough to play a 5. What do you do with that guy? He's a positionless player. He's out of place. You don't know what to do with him. That's not the case with Jalen Samuels. He's a weapon. You find ways to get guys like him involved. You find, like, I can never understand for the life of me why the Rams this past year couldn't find ways to use Tavon Austin. They handed him the football out of the backfield. They did a good job early on, and as the season progressed, they used him less and less until they realized he has no place here. We've got to move on from him. A guy like that, you just find a way to get him involved, get him touches. Same thing can be said for Jalen Samuels. This guy has a unique skill set. I'm anxious to see what the Steelers decide to do with him. Right now, he's being classified as a running back. I don't have any problems with that because he carried the rock at NC State, but the guy can catch the football. He's a mismatch nightmare, and that's why I really like him being utilized as a running back because teams are so stupid around the league. Because a guy is in the backfield and then he's split out, they automatically send a linebacker with him. Well, this isn't your ordinary running back. Like, this guy can run routes. This guy has hands. Yeah, I'd love to see you put your little linebacker on this guy one-on-one. See if Jalen Samuels doesn't eat his ass alive. So, I'm excited for him, as you can tell. 6 feet, 225 out of NC State. So, again, most people, oh, he's not big enough to be a true fullback. He's not big enough to be a true tight end. And he's not fast enough to be a running back. Okay, all right. 4.54 40. Not fast enough, huh? 18 reps of 2 1/4, 34.5-inch vert, 10-foot broad. So, again, athletic guy here. Starting experience at tight end, H-back, and running back. So, he's got starting experience in multiple positions. Career stats. This is the stuff that I love right here because he just does so much. He fills up the stat sheet. 181 career rushes for 1,103 yards and 28 touchdowns. That's on the ground, okay? Receiving 203 catches for 1,855 yards and 19 scores. Did you just hear what I just said? Basically 3,000 yards worth of production and over 40 touchdowns in this man's career. That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous number. In 2017, he had 77 rushes for 403 yards and 12 scores and tacked on an additional 76 catches. Think about that for a second. 76 grabs for 597 yards and 4 scores. There was one game, you turn on the South Carolina game, the guy had like 900 targets and he caught like 850 of them. He was doing those boys. Like, the guy can play ball, and then you can turn around and hand it to him. He's a mismatch because, like I said, teams are dummies. You line him up in the backfield, and then you motion him. All of a sudden, now, got to put my linebacker on him. Now he's got a one-on-one with a line. This is a bona fide receiver running routes against a linebacker. Not fair, okay? So, look, I'm not going to get into an in-depth breakdown because he's a multifaceted athlete is what he is. He's a guy that you move around as a chess piece. And like I said, I love the fact that the Steelers are classifying him as a running back. Similar to Green Bay with Ty Montgomery, that's a mismatch. When Ty Montgomery is in the backfield and they motion him out and a linebacker goes with him, essentially Ty Montgomery was a wide receiver and a running back at Stanford, but he was more of a wide receiver. But if you put him in the backfield, he's now being recognized as a running back. So now if it's man-to-man coverage, that linebacker is going to shift out with him, and you get a mismatch. One that you should be happy to take full advantage of. I think the Steelers are in a great spot to do the same with Jalen Samuels. The guy can catch it. You can hand it to him out of the backfield. He can serve as a blocker. He's not a great blocker, though. I wouldn't do that if I were you, but he can do a little bit of everything. You can line him up as an H-back and then go play action fake, have this guy come across the formation. All of a sudden, you got a mismatch. He's out in space. You throw it to him, and he can get nasty. So there's so many different ways to utilize Jalen Samuels. He runs routes, like literally corner routes, like a tight end. But you got him lined up as a running back, so you're going to get mismatches. I can't wait to see how the Steelers explore this, because there's a lot here with this player, and I think he's very undervalued, very underrated, and I think he's a guy that can help this Steelers football team in the 5th round, 165th overall selection. Offensive weapon out of NC State. Jalen Samuels, for me, is for those of you scoring at home, Jalen Samuels was a double as we get to the 7th and final pick in this Steelers draft. 7th round, 246th overall selection. Alabama defensive lineman Joshua Frazier is the pick. So Joshua Frazier is a guy that you probably haven't heard much about. You say, he played at Alabama? Really? Didn't remember seeing him very often. That's because he was a rotational depth player, a key reserve for them for the duration of his career. Not a bunch of starts here for this guy. He probably saw more action in his freshman year than he did any other year of his career. Maybe his senior year, he was a little bit more of a mainstay in that rotation. But, I mean, it's tough when you run off the number of guys that have come through Alabama since this guy's hit the campus. It's tough to even get on the field, which he found it tough to get on the field, whether you're talking about Jaron Reed or Ashawn Robinson or Jonathan Allen or Deron Payne. I mean, look at these names that we're running off here. You got the Hand kid that just came out this year, Deshaun Hand, and the list goes on and on and on. All these guys that were interior defensive linemen, just tough for a guy like Joshua Frazier to get consistent snaps. That being said, that doesn't mean this guy isn't talented. There just was other guys in front of him that were more talented. And so at 6'3", 321 pounds, this guy's no slouch. All right, he's one of the best defensive linemen coming out of the state of Arkansas when he arrived on the campus of Alabama. So it's not like this guy's a bum. And I look at it like this. He's an insurance policy because I don't think Daniel McCullers has ever lived up to the hype that you got when you draft a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", 340 pounds. Daniel McCullers hasn't really been anything other than a space eater. And so I think the Steelers are giving him one more shot. They re-signed him on a 1-year deal, and this is pretty much a, hey, man, show me what you got. If you can't give me more than what you've given me over the first 4 years of your career, then I'm gonna chuck up the deuces and we're gonna keep it moving. So I think Joshua Frazier is a guy that will be in line to replace a Daniel McCullers if that experiment for the final time doesn't go the way the Steelers would like it to. And I think a huge part of the reason why this guy was signed is because the Steelers now have Carl Dunbar on their staff. He was the defensive line coach at Alabama for the last few years, and he was able to work very intimately with Joshua Frazier, and he knows what kind of a player he is and knows that this guy's a big body that's athletic, that can eat up space, that can stand up strong and physical at the point of attack, but also can move a little bit. So 34-inch arms, good length there, 21 reps of 2 1/4, 2 sacks in his career, 4.5 tackles for loss, 3 PBUs, and a forced fumble. was a key reserve his entire career at Alabama. I watched him get a sack versus Washington in the playoff game in 2016. I watched him get a sack versus Clemson and Kelly Bryant in 2017 in the playoffs. Watched this guy get a couple of bat downs in a game versus Florida State, the first game of 2017. So I watched this guy do some good things, man, and he can move a little bit. He's physical at the point of attack. So there's some good things here. And again, one of these guys didn't get a lot of opportunities at Alabama. He may be a guy that the best is yet to come. His best football may be ahead of him. And all he may have needed was more opportunities and for someone to believe. He knows Carl Dunbar believes in him. He may get the opportunity in Pittsburgh. Those two forces collide, and all of a sudden you could have yourself a good football player on your hands. I saw all of the intangibles, all of the ingredients for a guy that could be a key contributor up front for the Steelers. We'll see if he's, one, able to make this roster, and two, able to be a contributor, whether it be on the practice squad initially or as a guy that makes the final 53-man roster. We'll see what the Steelers have in store for Joshua Frazier. But nonetheless, 7th round, 246th overall selection, defensive lineman out of Alabama, Joshua Frazier, wraps up this Steelers draft as a So that's the Steelers draft in a nutshell. If you want to see the individual scores for all of the players that I was able to grade in this Steelers draft, check out the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net, for all the scores and a number of different things. Check out the website. Also check out the podcast, Louie Tee Network podcast, available on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Music Play, and of course the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. There are a number of ways you can donate to the movement, the Louie Tee Network. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. Everything you need to support this channel, to support this movement and this brand, is down in the description of this video. Make sure you like this video, you share this video, and most importantly, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network. That being said, this is how I graded this draft turned in by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Colbert and company. This is what it looks like. So Kevin Colbert and company turned in another solid draft. Anxious to see how all these pieces fit into the puzzle that is the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. A lot of talent on this football team, and I love the fact that this draft signifies for me a changing of the guard. You get rid of your ex-third wide receiver, you enter in a new third wide receiver. You have the quarterback of the future on the roster now. If anything were to happen to Ben, I feel confident that Mason Rudolph can step in for a 2 to 4 week stretch. Unlike the past where Landry Jones was going to be called upon to lose you 2 out of 3 games, this is a situation that's set up for success. The safety of the future is on the roster now in Terrell Edmonds. All of these things are starting to come into focus now. Honestly, the only thing that you're lacking now is the back of the future, because I don't think Le'Veon Bell is that guy. I don't think James Conner is that guy. But you can draft that guy next year. You didn't have to draft him now because Le'Veon Bell will play for you this year. So you got a number of things going well for you. I'm anxious to see how all of these pieces are put together. That's the Steelers draft in a nutshell. I'm your man, Louie Tee, signing off. Remember, we're changing the game one video at a time. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.